Cha Eun-woo's name has rocked the Korean entertainment scene again after discussions about his military service strategy became increasingly heated in various online communities, which was initially only considered as a neat form of career management before the draft. It has now turned into a much wilder debate. Some fans began to claim that what is happening at the moment no longer looks like a coincidence of project schedules, rather like a series of events arranged with too precise timing. Every time a project is discussed, something new comes up that revives Cha Eun-woo's name in trending. And this is what sparked the most heated speculation so far. It's not just about surviving the draft. It's about keeping the momentum going in a way that not everyone understands. The situation got even more crowded when some fans began to devise their own theories on social media. There are those who mention the possibility of content, projects, or even visual materials that have not been officially announced, but have been prepared well in advance. It even appeared a term that went viral in fandom: hidden phase content. The phase of hidden content that is believed to continue to appear gradually. Although there is no official proof, this theory quickly spread because it was considered too plausible to ignore. On the other hand, industry observers actually see it with a different point of view. They say that this phenomenon may not be about hidden strategies, but the power of branding and popularity that is already very established. But the argument was not enough to dampen the already heated discussion, because in the eyes of fans, there are too many coincidences that happen in close proximity. And all of that makes one question keep repeating. If this has all been seen, then what haven't we seen? Now, the discussion no longer stops at the draft or the project, but it's already blossomed into a grand narrative about how an artist can still dominate the public conversation, even when not actively performing live. And to date, there is no answer that can completely stop such speculation. There is just the opposite. The more discussed, the greater the curiosity. And the greater the curiosity, the more alive, is also the name that is being discussed on various lines of social media: Fire. And precisely at that point, the discussion began to enter a deeper phase than just excitement on the surface. Because the longer this discussion goes on, the more fans start comparing one thing: how a name can stay in the limelight without always having to be present in person. To some, it looks simple: huge popularity, a strong fan base, and pre-existing works are indeed enough to maintain existence. But for fans who more actively follow every detail, the emerging pattern feels like something layered. It's not just about what is released, but about when it was released and how it came back brought new attention at the right time. On social media, this discussion even began to branch out in different directions. There are those who rediscuss the schedule of activities before enlistment, trying to trace whether there is a certain period that does look too crowded than usual. There are also those who reassemble pieces of old interviews, looking for new meanings from statements that used to be taken for granted, but now feel relevant to the current situation. And the more involved, the greater the snowball effect. One old post can lead to thousands of new comments. A single video edit could reopen a discussion that had previously died down. In the midst of all that, an interesting phenomenon appeared that began to be often referred to by fandom: re-emergence effect. An unofficial term used to describe how old content seems to come back to life when a new context appears. In this case, Cha Eun-woo's name becomes the center of all that turnover. Not because there's big new activity all the time, but because every old piece always finds a way to come back relevant at a different time. And this is what makes the discussion even more difficult to subside. But on the other hand, not everyone sees this as something structured. Some observers emphasize that this is a natural pattern in the modern entertainment industry. In the digital age, content is not really dead. It's just waiting for the right moment to come back to the surface. And when that momentum is met with great popularity, the effect can be repeated indefinitely. But even that explanation did not completely stop the growing speculation in the fandom. Because for some fans, too many moments feel just in time to be considered just a coincidence. Increasingly, these discussions are no longer centered on just one person, but it began to turn into a discussion of how the entertainment industry works behind the scenes, how strategy, release timing, and public expectations can collide with each other and create narratives that are much larger than just one individual. And in the midst of all that theory, one thing remains the same. The name at the center of this conversation never really disappeared from the radar. Even when there is no new activity, fire it is precisely where the question arises that is constantly repeated in various communities. Is this the result of a very neat and well-planned system? Or is it precisely the combination of momentum, popularity, and public interpretation that continues to grow indefinitely? No answer can really close this discussion, because every time one theory starts to look plausible, there are always other events that again open the door to new speculations. And now, that discussion is no longer at the starting point. It's already moving into something bigger, longer, more complex, and growing every time a tiny new piece of information comes to the surface. As if this story never really stopped. It only changes shape over time, and the public is still in the middle, observing, interpreting, and waiting for whether someday there will be an endpoint that really answers all the questions that have been spinning, or there will never be an endpoint at all. And when that discussion starts to feel like it has reached the limits of fandom theory, that's exactly where a new phase begins to take shape, broader, more layered, and no longer just moving in one community space. The discussion about Cha Eun-woo is now starting to spread to various larger forums, including general discussions about the Korean entertainment industry as a whole. The name, which initially appeared only in the context of projects and conscription, has now become the entrance for much more complex discussions. It is no longer just what has been done, but it turns into how this system works. In some communities, comparisons began to appear with other artists who were also serving in the military, but the comparison reveals one thing that makes the discussion even more heated. Not all artists have the same exposure patterns during their enlistment. Something is completely missing from the public radar. There are those who only occasionally appear through small news. And there are those who continue to be talked about even without major new activities. From here, Cha Eun-woo's name re-enters the limelight of the discussion not because of anything new happening, but because of how he stays in the mainstream of the conversation, amid conditions that usually make the spotlight dim. The deeper the discussion develops, the more interpretations appear. Some fans say this is the result of a preconceived content ecosystem, where projects, release schedules, and promotional materials are set up to maintain exposure over a period of time. But others are starting to look at it from a more emotional angle. They believe that this is not just an industrial strategy, but rather the result of a long relationship between the artist and the public that makes each work have a longer life than usual. And between the two views, there is no truly final meeting point. The interesting thing is, the more new discussions that arise, the stronger the reflection effect from the past. The old interview was replayed. Old photo shoot footage goes viral again. Old drama scenes re-enter algorithm recommendations. It's as if all the digital footprints that have ever existed are now forming a new layer that continues to reinforce today's evolving narrative. And at this point, the discussion no longer depends on a single event, but on the whole interconnected trail. But in the midst of it all, a quieter voice began to emerge from some observers. They emphasized that this phenomenon is actually very typical of the modern digital age, when content archives are never completely submerged, and algorithms constantly revive old material based on repeated public interest.